Well, that's it for today's program, but you can get in touch with me and some of the team with your feedback on social media. I'm at Wahiga Mwaura on X. Also do have a look at BBC Africa for news from across the continent. But that's all the time we had for the program today. Thanks for joining us once again. From me, Wahiga Mwaura, and the rest of the Focus on Africa team, we'll see you again on Monday. Thanks for joining us, and goodbye.
It's 6 p.m. in London. This is The World Today.
The voting has been completed. Please lock the machine.
Israeli fury as the United Nations General Assembly votes for full Palestinian membership, effectively recognizing a state of Palestine. Israel says UN member countries are shredding the UN Charter. A surprise Russian attack in the Kharkiv region of Ukraine. President Zelensky says his troops are fighting back.
I'm Marianne Mashiri, live in Malmo for the Eurovision Song Contest, where controversy continues as the Dutch act is barred from rehearsing and protests over Israel are set to continue tomorrow.
And also coming up on The World Today, how sperm whales talk to each other with what sounds a little bit like Morse code. Hello, welcome to The World Today, an hour of international news from the BBC. Well, in the end, the vote was overwhelming. The United Nations General Assembly backed a Palestinian bid to become a full member of the UN in a move that would enhance its status at the organisation and effectively recognise a Palestinian state. Here's the moment when the resolution went through. Thank you so much for being with us. That's Senator Chris Van Hollen, US Senator for Maryland. Thank you for being with us on BBC News.
Thank you.
Well, still to come on The World Today, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle on a visit to Nigeria, promoting his Invictus Games, and how sperm whales talk to each other with rhythmic clicks. Around the world and across the UK, this is The World Today on BBC News. Now, he is one of Europe's most wanted people smugglers, the mastermind behind thousands of channel crossings for migrants in small boats and in lorries. His real name is Barzan Majid, but he is nicknamed the Scorpion, and now he's been tracked down and interviewed as part of a BBC investigation. Our reporter Sue Mitchell set out to find him with the help of aid worker and former soldier Rob Laurie. All right, Jonathan, thank you very much indeed. That's Jonathan Beale there, our defence correspondent in Kharkiv. Do stay with us here on BBC News. Hello, this is BBC News, our latest headlines.
The voting has been completed. Please lock the machine.
Israeli fury as the United Nations General Assembly votes for full Palestinian membership, effectively recognising a state of Palestine. Israel says member countries are shredding the United Nations Charter.
You are shredding the UN Charter.
I'm here in Abuja where Prince Harry and Meghan have been speaking to school children about mental health.
And the Dutch Eurovision contestant is stopped from rehearsing by organisers. We'll be live in Malmö in Sweden with the very latest. Well, let's bring you more now on the news that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have begun their visit to Nigeria. Here they are, Prince Harry and his wife Meghan, being greeted at an event in Abuja. It is the start of a 3-day trip, which is at the invitation of the Chief of Defence Staff. Well, Harry will attend a reception to honour military families, and Meghan will co-host an event for women in leadership. They will also attend several events together, including a visit to a school where they have been speaking about mental health. And still to come on The World Today, we're going to be live in Malmö in Sweden with all the latest news from the Eurovision Song Contest around the world and across the UK. This is The World Today on BBC News. Now, the Dutch Eurovision contestant has been stopped from rehearsing by the organisers. The European Broadcasting Union said it was investigating an incident reported to us involving the Dutch artist. He will not be rehearsing until further notice. That's what the EBU said. Well, let's go straight to Malmö in Sweden and join my colleague Mariam Mashiri, who's there for us. And Mariam, well, every day it seems there's another controversy at this Eurovision Song Contest.
Absolutely, Ben, you're not wrong there. It is the 68th annual Eurovision Song Contest and probably one of the most controversial that have ever happened. Here in Malmö, the mood you can see behind me is one of jubilation. There are people from all over the world arriving here to attend the jury final, which takes place in not very long, in about an hour and a quarter.
Yeah, Spain.
Oh, Spain, yeah, amazing. Fantastic. Well, listen, thank you very much, all of you. Say goodbye to the BBC News viewers. That's it from me here in Malmö. I'm coming back in about an hour's time if they let me back on. I'm not sure they will, but who knows. Live from Malmö as we await the jury final this Friday night. Bye-bye from us.
Hello, it's 7 p.m. in London. This is The World Today, our latest news headlines. Here in the UK, the Labour Party set out their policy on dealing with small boat crossings in the Channel, saying they would scrap the Rwanda plan straight away if they come into government.
The voting has been completed. Please lock the machine.
Israeli fury as the United Nations General Assembly backs a bid for enhanced Palestinian status at the UN, potentially paving the way for effective recognition of a Palestinian state. Israel says member countries are shredding the UN Charter.
It's been a day of some striking words and actions on the floor of the General Assembly, granting a lot of symbolism and a little bit of substance to the Palestinian cause over the objections of the Israelis and the Americans.
I'm Marianne Mashiri, live outside the arena in Malmo, where the Eurovision Song Contest will take place tomorrow night. Controversy surrounds the Dutch act. Will Jos Klein be allowed to perform tonight? We'll have the very latest for you at the end of the programme.
And also coming up on The World Today. What sounds like clicking or maybe Morse code is actually sperm whales talking. Hello, welcome to The World Today, an hour of international news from the BBC. Well, we start here in the UK because the Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer has said if his party wins power, it would scrap the Conservatives' Rwanda policy straight away. He's been in Dover outlining measures that Labour would introduce to tackle cross-channel migration. But Sir Keir Starmer refused to set a target for getting the numbers down, saying he would not put false numbers on his plans. New figures from the Home Office show more than 9,000 people have crossed the channel in small boats so far this year. Now, that is a rise of 35% on the same period last year. Our political editor, Chris Mason, has been speaking to the Labour Party leader. OK, still to come on The World Today, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle on a visit to Nigeria, promoting his Invictus Games, and how sperm whales talk to each other with rhythmic clicks, a bit like Morse code. Around the world and across the UK, this is The World Today on BBC News. Now, let's just turn our attention to the latest situation in Ukraine, because there has been a surprise attack, one of Russia's biggest land operations in the northeast of Ukraine for the last 2 years. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says his units have been fighting back in the Kharkiv region. That's after the new Russian offensive there. Small groups of Russian troops with armoured vehicles pushed through the front line. Military sources say they advanced about a kilometre before being pushed back. There have been reports of sustained. OK, plenty more to come. Do stay with us here on BBC News. Hello again, this is BBC News. A look at our latest headlines.
The voting has been completed. Please lock the machine.
Israeli fury as the United Nations General Assembly backs a bid for enhanced Palestinian status at the UN, potentially paving the way for effective recognition of a Palestinian state. Israel says member countries at the UN are shredding its charter. Prince Harry and his wife Meghan Markle kick off an informal tour of Nigeria. And the Dutch Eurovision contestant is stopped from rehearsing by organisers. We'll be live in Malmo in Sweden with the very latest. Well, more on that news that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have begun their visit to Nigeria. Here they are, Prince Harry and his wife Meghan, being greeted at an event in Abuja, the start of a 3-day trip, which is at the invitation of the country's Chief of Defence Staff. Well, Harry will attend a reception to honour military families. Meghan will co-host an event for women in leadership. And for more about this, I've been speaking to our Africa correspondent, Simi Jola Osho, who is in Abuja for us. That's Lawrence Hart there from the International Organisation for Migration's Coordination Office. Now, Pirandita Khan, who was found guilty last month of the murder in 2005 of the British police officer Sharon Beshniewski, has been jailed for life. The mother of 3 was shot dead as she and her colleague responded to an alarm at a travel agent's in the city of Bradford. The judge said that PC Beshniewski's courage and commitment to her duty that day cost her her life. Our correspondent Danny Savage was in court. Well, still to come on The World Today, we're going to be live in Malmö in Sweden with all the very latest news from the Eurovision Song Contest around the world and across the United Kingdom. This is The World Today on BBC News. Back to the Eurovision Song Contest now, and the Dutch Eurovision contestant has been stopped from rehearsing by the organisers. The European Broadcasting Union said it was, quote, investigating an incident reported to us involving the Dutch artist. He will not be rehearsing till further notice. That's what the EBU said. Well, let's go live to Malmö now in Sweden and join my colleague Mariam Mashiri, who is there for us, covering all the twists and turns of this particular song contest. And every day it seems to bring another controversy, Mariam.
It does indeed, yes, Ben. The 68th Eurovision Song Contest, and it is one of the most controversial that we've ever seen. The protests over the Israeli entry being allowed to compete by the EBU, which happened yesterday. We're expecting more protests to happen tomorrow. That caused a lot of controversy and a lot of issues for the EBU organisers. The protests were non-violent, they were loud, but they weren't violent. There are thousands of people who attended, and as I mentioned, there are more planned for tomorrow. Anger amongst those protesters. Okay, well, David, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on The World Today to share your memories of that historic day 50 years ago when ABBA won the Eurovision Song Contest. Of course, Sweden have an entry this year. Their song is going to be the first one sung in the contest. Normally the first ones don't win it. The second song to be sung is Ukraine. Apparently that is called the Graveyard Slot, but who knows, there's all to be played for. This year is one of the most open competitions they've had in their 68-year history. So the 200 million people watching around the world will have a lot of fun tomorrow evening, I'm sure, when they watch the Eurovision Contest Grand Final on Saturday night. Well, look, it's time now to bring in the most important element of the Eurovision Song Contest. Me! No, I'm kidding. It's not me. It's the fans, of course. Everyone, come over here. You're live on BBC News. Where are you guys from?
We're from Edinburgh.
Oh, fantastic. So who are you supporting?
The UK, obviously. Ollie.
In Croatia. Yeah, in Croatia, of course.
What is it about Ollie's song that you love? Do you know, that actually is very, very important. That's the key message, isn't it? The EBU, there's been controversy, there's been strife this week, I guess, but what the EBU really want people to understand is that this is a music competition. People are united by music. There is a big grand final happening tomorrow, and the key thing for you guys to remember, there'll be 26 countries vying out for your vote, singing their hearts out in the grand final. The winner will then get the Eurovision Song Contest next year. That's a big deal, isn't it, to get that? Greece are hoping for Greece, the UK hoping for the UK. Yes. Who knows? I'm going to say goodbye to you, Ben, from here in Malmo. Thanks so much for watching The World Today. Bye-bye from us. Say bye, guys.
Bye.
Woo!
Bye.
Woo!
Hello. After another very warm and mostly sunny